Welcome everyone. Today, we journey back more than 2,000 years to explore one of humanity's greatest achievements. The Great Wall of China stretches across mountains, deserts, and grasslands for thousands of kilometers. But this is not just a story about stones and mortar. This is a story about human ambition, sacrifice, and survival. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing on a cold mountain ridge in northern China. The year is 221 BC. The wind howls through the valleys below, carrying dust from the Gobi Desert. You are a soldier, far from home, watching the horizon for enemies. Behind you rises a massive wall of earth and stone, built by the sweat and blood of millions. This is where our story begins. But to truly understand the Great Wall, we must go back even further. Long before there was one Great Wall, there were many small walls. During a period called the Warring States, from about 475 to 221 BC, China was divided into 7 powerful kingdoms. These kingdoms fought each other constantly for land, resources, and power. Each kingdom built walls to protect its borders from its neighbors. These early walls were not made of brick or stone. Workers built them from whatever materials they could find nearby. In the plains, they used packed earth. In the mountains, they used stones. Some sections used wood and even reeds tied together. The walls were simple but effective. They marked territory and made it harder for enemy armies to invade quickly. Life during the Warring States period was brutal and uncertain. Farmers never knew when soldiers might march through their fields. Villages could be destroyed in a single afternoon. Children grew up hearing stories of battles and heroes. The constant warfare pushed each kingdom to innovate, to build better weapons, stronger defenses, and yes, longer walls. Then everything changed. In 221 BC, one kingdom finally conquered all the others. The king of Qin declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. For the first time in centuries, China was united under one ruler. But the emperor faced a new problem. The kingdoms he had conquered no longer threatened him. Now his greatest enemy came from the north. Beyond China's northern borders lived nomadic tribes, particularly the Xiongnu. These were fierce warriors who lived on horseback, moving with their herds across vast grasslands. They were expert archers and raiders. They would sweep down from the steppes, attack Chinese villages, steal grain and livestock, then disappear before the Chinese army could respond. The emperor needed a solution. Qin Shi Huang made a bold decision. He would connect and extend the old walls built by the previous kingdoms into one continuous barrier. This would be the longest defensive structure the world had ever seen. The project was massive, perhaps the largest construction project in human history up to that point. It would require millions of workers and take decades to complete. General Meng Tian received the command to oversee the wall's construction. Imagine the weight of this responsibility. The emperor expected results, and failure could mean death. Meng Tian mobilized an army of workers unlike anything seen before. Soldiers, peasants, prisoners, and criminals were all sent to the northern frontier. Historians estimate that over 1 million people worked on the wall during Qin Shi Huang's reign. The working conditions were terrible beyond imagination. Workers labored in extreme heat during summer and freezing cold during winter. The northern frontier was harsh and unforgiving. Food was scarce. Medical care was almost non-existent. Many workers were far from their families, forced to leave their homes and farms. They slept in crude shelters and worked from sunrise to sunset. The construction process itself was backbreaking. Workers had to move earth and stones up steep mountain slopes. They used simple tools, shovels, picks, baskets, and their bare hands. To create the wall's foundation, they dug deep trenches. Then they filled these trenches with layers of earth, stones, and gravel. Each layer was pounded down with wooden hammers until it became as hard as concrete. In some sections, workers used a technique called rammed earth. They built wooden frames, filled them with loose earth mixed with gravel, then pounded it down with heavy wooden poles. Dozens of workers would lift the poles together and slam them down in rhythm. The sound echoed across the mountains like drums. Pound after pound, layer after layer, the wall grew higher. Death was a constant companion on the wall. Workers died from exhaustion, disease, accidents, and the harsh weather. Some historians believe hundreds of thousands died during the construction. There is a famous Chinese legend that says the bones of dead workers were buried within the wall itself. While this is probably not true, it reflects the terrible human cost of this project. One famous legend tells of a woman named Meng Jiangnu. Her husband was forced to work on the wall shortly after their wedding. Months passed with no word from him. Finally, Meng Jiangnu made the long, dangerous journey to the wall to find him. When she arrived, she learned he had died and been buried in the wall. Her grief was so great that she wept for days. According to legend, her tears were so powerful that a section of the wall collapsed, revealing her husband's bones so she could give him a proper burial. This legend, whether true or not, shows us something important. The Great Wall was not just a military project. It represented the suffering of ordinary people. While the emperor sat in his palace, millions of families were torn apart. Farmers who should have been growing food were instead moving stones. The wall protected China, but it also caused immense pain to the Chinese people themselves. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC, just 11 years after unifying China. His dynasty collapsed shortly after. But the wall remained. The next dynasty, the Han dynasty, continued to extend and maintain it. The Han emperors ruled from 206 BC to 220 AD, over 400 years. During this time, the wall grew even longer, stretching westward into the deserts. The Han dynasty faced the same threats from northern nomads. But they also saw the wall differently. It was not just a defensive barrier. It became a symbol of where Chinese civilization ended and the barbarian lands began. The wall marked the boundary between the ordered world of farms and cities and the chaotic world of nomadic tribes. Along the wall, the Han built watchtowers every few hundred meters. Soldiers stationed in these towers kept constant watch. When they spotted enemy raiders, they lit signal fires. The smoke during the day and flames at night could be seen from the next tower. That tower would light its fire, and the next, and the next. Within hours, a warning could travel hundreds of kilometers. The emperor would know that enemies were approaching. Life as a wall guard was lonely and boring most of the time, but terrifying when raiders came. Imagine being a young soldier assigned to a remote watchtower. You are far from home, surrounded by a few companions. Days pass with nothing but wind and silence. You scan the horizon until your eyes hurt. Then one day, you see dust rising in the distance. Riders are coming. Your heart pounds as you rush to light the signal fire. Will help arrive in time. The wall also served economic purposes. It controlled trade routes, especially the famous Silk Road. Merchants traveling between China and the West had to pass through gates in the wall. Guards checked their goods and collected taxes. This gave the emperor control over valuable trade and brought wealth to the empire. The wall became not just a military barrier but an economic tool. After the Han dynasty fell, China entered a period of division and chaos. For several centuries, different kingdoms and dynasties controlled different parts of China. During this time, the wall was often neglected. Sections crumbled. Watchtowers collapsed. Wind and rain eroded the packed earth. Without constant maintenance, the wall began to return to the landscape from which it came. But the wall was never forgotten. Each new dynasty that arose in northern China had to deal with the same old problem: nomadic raiders from the steppes. And each dynasty, in turn, repaired and extended the wall. During the Sui dynasty in the late 500s AD, Emperor Yang mobilized over 1 million workers to repair the wall. Once again, countless people suffered and died to maintain this ancient barrier. Centuries passed. Dynasties rose and fell. The Mongols, the very nomads the wall was meant to stop, actually conquered China in the 1200s. They established the Yuan dynasty. Ironically, the Mongols had little interest in maintaining the wall. They were the threat it was built against. Why would they maintain a barrier meant to keep them out? During their rule, the wall deteriorated significantly. Then in 1368, the Ming dynasty came to power. The Ming emperors were Chinese, not Mongol. They drove the Mongols back to the northern steppes. Once again, China faced the old threat of nomadic raiders. The Ming emperors decided to rebuild the Great Wall on a scale never seen before. The wall we see today, the famous brick and stone structure that appears in photographs, is mostly the Ming Wall. The Ming dynasty ruled from 1368 to 1644, nearly 300 years. During this time, they transformed the wall from a simple earth barrier into an architectural masterpiece. Instead of packed earth, they used bricks and cut stones. They built the wall higher and wider. They added elaborate watchtowers and fortresses. They created a military system with permanent garrisons stationed along the wall. The construction during the Ming period was incredibly sophisticated. Workers made millions of bricks in kilns near the wall. They cut and shaped stones to fit perfectly together. They used lime mortar to bind the materials. In the mountains, they built the wall along ridge lines, following the natural contours of the land. This made it harder for enemies to approach and gave defenders a height advantage. Some sections of the Ming Wall are truly impressive feats of engineering. At Badaling, near Beijing, the wall climbs steep mountains, with watchtowers perched on seemingly impossible peaks. The wall here is wide enough that 5 horses could ride side by side along the top. Steps built into the wall allowed soldiers to move quickly between different levels. Drainage systems prevented water from eroding the foundation. The Ming emperors stationed hundreds of thousands of soldiers along the wall. These soldiers lived in fortresses and garrison towns built at regular intervals. They had families, grew food, and created communities. The wall zone became a unique frontier society, neither fully military nor fully civilian. Soldiers farmed during peacetime and fought during raids. Their children often became soldiers too, creating military families that served for generations. Despite all this effort and expense, the wall ultimately failed in its primary purpose. In 1644, the Ming dynasty fell. But the wall was not breached by nomadic raiders from the north. Instead, a Ming general named Wu Sangue opened the gates and allowed Manchu forces to enter China. The Manchus established the Qing dynasty, which ruled China until 1912. The wall could not protect against betrayal from within. Under the Qing dynasty, the wall lost its military importance. The Qing emperors were Manchus, from beyond the wall. They conquered both China and the northern steppes, uniting both sides under one rule. There was no longer an enemy to keep out. The wall was simply a border marker within their empire. Gradually, it was abandoned. Sections collapsed. Local people took bricks to build houses. Nature began to reclaim it. For over 200 years, the Great Wall stood neglected and forgotten by most Chinese people. It became a symbol of old China, of imperial waste and suffering. Many Chinese intellectuals in the early 1900s criticized the wall as a monument to tyranny. They saw it as evidence of how emperors had wasted the people's labor on useless projects. The wall represented everything they wanted to leave behind as China modernized. But in the mid-1900s, something changed. Chinese leaders began to see the wall differently. It became a symbol of Chinese strength, perseverance, and unity. It represented the ability of the Chinese people to accomplish great things when working together. During the 1950s and 1960s, the government began restoration projects. They rebuilt sections near Beijing, making them accessible to visitors. In 1987, UNESCO designated the Great Wall as a World Heritage Site. This recognized it as one of humanity's greatest cultural treasures. Today, millions of tourists from around the world visit the wall each year. They climb the steep steps, stand on the ancient stones, and look out across the mountains. They take photographs and marvel at the scale of human ambition required to build such a structure. But what should we really think about the Great Wall? This is a complex question. On one hand, it is an incredible achievement. The engineering, organization, and sheer determination required to build it are almost beyond comprehension. It shows what humans can accomplish when they commit to a vision, even if that vision takes centuries to complete. The wall has survived for over 2,000 years, outlasting all the dynasties that built it. On the other hand, we cannot forget the terrible human cost. Millions of people suffered and died building the wall. Families were destroyed. Farmers were taken from their fields, causing famines. The wall was built through forced labor, essentially slavery. The emperors who ordered its construction cared little for the suffering of ordinary people. They saw workers as tools, as expendable resources to achieve their goals. This reminds us that even today, we must ask difficult questions about great projects and achievements. Who benefits? Who pays the cost? When we build highways, dams, or cities, whose homes are destroyed? Whose lives are disrupted? Modern democracies try to balance progress with human rights. We try to ensure that development does not come at the cost of human dignity. But this balance is difficult, and we do not always succeed. The Great Wall also teaches us about the limits of defensive thinking. The emperors believed they could build a wall high enough and long enough to keep danger out forever. But walls cannot stop all threats. They could not stop betrayal from within. They could not stop the rise and fall of dynasties. They could not prevent historical change. In the end, China's security came not from walls but from diplomatic skill, military strength, and internal stability. Today, we still build walls. Countries build barriers along their borders to control immigration and smuggling. We build walls around our homes for security and privacy. We even build metaphorical walls between groups of people, based on religion, politics, or ideology. The Great Wall of China reminds us to think carefully about what walls can and cannot achieve. Do they truly make us safer? Or do they just make us feel safer while creating new problems? Walking along the Great Wall today is a strange experience. You can stand where soldiers stood 2,000 years ago, looking out at the same mountains and valleys. You can touch stones that workers placed centuries before your ancestors were born. You can feel the weight of history beneath your feet. It is humbling and inspiring at the same time. The wall is also a reminder of impermanence. Despite its massive scale, despite being built to last forever, it is crumbling. Nature is slowly taking it back. In remote areas, trees grow from the top of the wall. Stones fall and scatter down mountainsides. In a few more centuries, without constant maintenance, much of the wall will disappear. Even the greatest human achievements eventually return to dust. Yet the wall's legacy continues. It appears in Chinese art, literature, and film. It is a source of national pride. Chinese people often say that you are not a true hero until you have climbed the Great Wall. This saying reflects how the wall has transformed from a symbol of imperial oppression into a symbol of national identity and achievement. The meaning we give to historical monuments changes over time. The Great Wall has also become a global symbol. People around the world recognize it immediately. It represents China in the same way the Eiffel Tower represents France or the pyramids represent Egypt. It is one of the few human-made structures visible from space, though this is actually a myth. Astronauts report that the wall is very difficult to see from orbit. But the myth persists because it captures something true about the wall's significance. Scientists and historians continue to study the wall, making new discoveries. Using modern technology like satellite imagery and drones, they have found sections of the wall that were previously unknown. They have mapped the entire structure more accurately than ever before. They have studied the materials and construction techniques, gaining insights into ancient Chinese technology and engineering. Archaeologists have excavated garrison towns and fortresses along the wall. They have found artifacts that tell us about daily life for the soldiers and their families. Cooking pots, weapons, games, letters, and personal items bring these ancient people to life. We learn that they were not so different from us. They worried about their families, complained about their commanders, played games to pass the time, and hoped for a better future. One particularly moving discovery was a collection of wooden tablets found at a garrison near Dunhuan. These tablets contained letters written by soldiers to their families, and letters from families to soldiers. They speak of loneliness, love, worry, and hope. One soldier wrote to his wife, apologizing for being away so long and promising to return soon. We do not know if he ever made it home. These letters remind us that history is made of individual human lives, each one precious. The Great Wall also plays a role in modern Chinese politics and diplomacy. Government leaders often bring foreign dignitaries to visit the wall. It is a way of showing China's long history and cultural achievement. It sends a message: China is an ancient civilization that has endured for thousands of years. We have faced challenges before and survived. We will continue to endure. The wall becomes a tool of soft power. Environmentalists worry about the wall's future. Tourism brings money for restoration but also causes damage. Millions of feet wear down the ancient stones. People carve their names into the wall, a form of vandalism that destroys historical integrity. Climate change brings more severe weather, accelerating erosion. Balancing preservation with access is an ongoing challenge. How do we protect the wall while allowing people to experience it? Some sections of the wall have been heavily restored, almost rebuilt. They look impressive but may not be historically accurate. Other sections remain in their natural, crumbling state. Historians debate which approach is better. Should we restore the wall to how it looked during the Ming Dynasty? Or should we preserve it as it is now, showing the effects of time? There is no easy answer. Both approaches have value. In recent years, some Chinese citizens have taken it upon themselves to protect the wall. They walk remote sections, documenting damage and reporting problems to authorities. They pick up trash left by visitors. They photograph and measure sections before they collapse. These wall protectors are often elderly people who feel a personal connection to this monument. They see it as their duty to preserve it for future generations. The Great Wall has inspired similar projects around the world, though none match its scale. The Romans built Hadrian's Wall across northern Britain. The Germans built the Atlantic Wall during World War II. More recently, countries have built border walls in the Middle East, Europe, and North America. Each of these walls has its own story, its own purpose, and its own controversy. But all of them echo the same human impulse, to create a barrier between us and them, between safety and danger. What makes the Great Wall of China unique is not just its size but its duration. It was built, maintained, abandoned, and rebuilt over more than 2,000 years. It represents the continuous effort of countless generations. No single person, no single dynasty, no single century can claim it. It belongs to Chinese history as a whole. It is the accumulated work of millions of people across vast stretches of time. This raises profound questions about how we should judge historical achievements. Can we separate the achievement from the suffering that created it? Can we admire the wall while condemning the emperors who built it? Can we honor the workers who died without glorifying the system that killed them? These questions have no simple answers. They require us to hold multiple truths at once, to embrace complexity rather than simplicity. The Great Wall teaches us about the nature of borders and boundaries. Borders are human creations. They exist in our minds and on our maps before they exist on the ground. The wall made an idea physical. It turned the concept of China versus not China into stone and earth. But borders are also fluid. They change over time. What was once the edge of civilization became the center. What was once foreign became familiar. The wall that divided eventually united. In Chinese philosophy, there is a concept called yin and yang, the idea that opposite forces are interconnected and interdependent. The Great Wall embodies this principle. It is both a symbol of strength and a symbol of fear. It represents both achievement and suffering. It divided but also defined. It failed in its original purpose but succeeded in ways its builders never imagined. It is simultaneously a monument to human capability and human folly. As we stand on the Great Wall today, looking out across the mountains, we can reflect on what it means to be human. We are builders and dreamers. We create monuments that outlast our individual lives. We work together to achieve things no single person could accomplish alone. We are capable of incredible feats of organization and engineering. But we are also capable of terrible cruelty, of sacrificing others for our visions, of building walls between ourselves and our fellow humans. The wall also reminds us of our relationship with nature. Humans build, but nature endures. We shape the landscape, but the landscape shapes us back. The wall follows mountain ridges, crosses rivers, adapts to the terrain. It is both a human creation and a natural feature. Over time, it is returning to the earth from which it came. Plants grow through it. Animals make homes in it. The boundary between human and natural blurs. There is something deeply moving about standing on a structure built by people who lived and died thousands of years ago. They could not have imagined that we would be here, walking where they walked, touching what they built. We cannot imagine who will stand here thousands of years from now, if anyone. The wall connects us across time, creating a chain of human experience that stretches from the ancient past into an unknown future. For the workers who built the wall, it must have seemed endless, pointless even. They could not see the entire structure. They knew only their small section, their daily labor, their suffering. They could not know that their work would last for millennia. They could not know that millions of people would one day travel from around the world to see what they built. Their individual contributions seemed small, but together they created something that transcends any individual life. This is perhaps the most important lesson of the Great Wall. Great achievements are built one stone at a time, one day at a time, by ordinary people doing difficult work. History is not made only by emperors and generals. It is made by the nameless millions who carry stones, who pound earth, who stand watch through cold nights. Their names are forgotten, but their work remains. They are the true builders of history. The Great Wall of China is more than a tourist attraction or a historical curiosity. It is a mirror in which we can see ourselves. It reflects our ambitions and our fears, our capabilities and our limitations. It shows us what we can build when we work together, but also what we can destroy. It reminds us that the greatest monuments are built on the backs of ordinary people, and that we must never forget their sacrifice. As China continues to rise as a global power in the 21st century, the Great Wall takes on new meanings. Some see it as a symbol of China's return to greatness after centuries of weakness. Others see it as a warning against isolation and defensive thinking. China today is connected to the world through trade, technology, and culture in ways the ancient emperors could never have imagined. The wall that once marked the boundary of Chinese civilization now sits well within China's borders. Young Chinese people today have complicated feelings about the wall. Some see it as a source of pride, proof of their ancestors' ingenuity and determination. Others see it as a relic of feudal oppression, a reminder of how emperors treated people as expendable tools. Many feel both pride and discomfort simultaneously. This tension reflects broader debates in China about how to relate to the past, how to honor tradition while embracing modernity. The Great Wall has become a powerful metaphor in literature and popular culture. Writers use it to explore themes of division and unity, strength and vulnerability, permanence and change. Film directors use it as a dramatic backdrop for stories of adventure and conflict. Artists reimagine it in paintings, sculptures, and installations. Each generation finds new meanings in this ancient structure, projecting their own concerns and dreams onto its stones. In our interconnected modern world, the idea of building walls to keep people out seems both familiar and strange. We live in an age of global communication, where information crosses borders instantly. Yet we also live in an age of rising nationalism, where countries increasingly focus on protecting their borders and preserving their identities. The Great Wall reminds us that this tension is not new. Humans have always struggled to balance openness with security, connection with protection. The wall also speaks to our desire for permanence in an impermanent world. We build monuments hoping they will last forever, hoping to be remembered, hoping to leave a mark on history. But nothing lasts forever. Even the Great Wall is slowly crumbling. This impermanence is not a failure. It is simply the nature of existence. Everything that is built will eventually fall. Everything that begins will eventually end. The question is not whether our works will last forever, but whether they have meaning while they exist. What meaning does the Great Wall have for us today? Perhaps it reminds us to think carefully about what we build and why we build it. Are we building walls or bridges? Are we creating barriers or connections? Are we dividing or uniting? These questions matter in our personal lives, in our communities, and in our world. Every day we make choices about whether to open ourselves to others or close ourselves off, whether to trust or fear, whether to include or exclude. The Great Wall also teaches us about the long arc of history. The dynasties that built the wall seemed all-powerful in their time. They commanded millions of people. They controlled vast territories. They believed their rule would last forever. But all of them fell. The emperors are dust. Their palaces are ruins. Only the wall remains, and even it is crumbling. Power is temporary. Empires rise and fall. But the works of human hands, the stories we tell, and the lessons we learn can endure across centuries. Perhaps most importantly, the Great Wall reminds us of our common humanity. The people who built it were not so different from us. They loved their families. They hoped for better lives. They suffered and struggled. They dreamed and worked. They were human beings, just like us, trying to make their way in a difficult world. When we remember this, when we see ourselves in them, the wall becomes not just a Chinese monument but a human monument. It belongs to all of us. Standing on the Great Wall, looking out at the mountains and valleys, you can almost hear the echoes of the past. The shouts of workers, the commands of officers, the signal fires crackling, the wind that has blown for thousands of years. You can feel the weight of all those lives, all that labor, all that hope and suffering compressed into stone. You are standing on history itself, on the accumulated efforts of countless human beings reaching across time to touch you. The Great Wall of China teaches us that human beings are capable of extraordinary things. We can move mountains, literally. We can organize millions of people toward a common goal. We can create structures that last for millennia. But it also teaches us that we must be careful about how we use this capability. Great achievements often come at great cost. We must ask ourselves whether the end justifies the means, whether the monument is worth the suffering, whether what we build serves human flourishing or human oppression. In the end, the Great Wall is neither purely good nor purely bad. It is complex, like history itself, like human nature itself. It contains multitudes. It is a triumph and a tragedy, a wonder and a warning, a source of pride and a cause for reflection. It invites us to think deeply about who we are, what we value, and what kind of world we want to build. These are questions every generation must answer for itself. As the sun sets over the Great Wall, casting long shadows across the ancient stones, we are left with a sense of awe and humility. Awe at what humans can accomplish when they set their minds to a task, no matter how impossible it seems. Humility in the face of time, which erodes even the greatest monuments, which reduces emperors and empires to footnotes in history books. The wall stands as a testament to human ambition, human suffering, human perseverance, and human folly. It stands as a reminder that we are all part of a story much larger than ourselves, a story that began long before we were born and will continue long after we are gone.